Right now, he wants to see the U.S. reimpose sanctions. He wants the UN to impose emergency sanctions and also vote to send in emergency humanitarian aid. And so those are the steps that he says the United States should take. Now, is the Obama administration willing to take those steps? So far, we haven't seen any indication that they are. That's, again, why we wanted to watch Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, because really everyone inside the White House is saying, look to the State Department on this. We're not really speaking about Libya today. All right.
Patty Culhane with the view from Washington, D.C. Thanks, Patty. Let's move across the Atlantic and get the view from Europe. Felicity Barr is in our London centre with more on this. Felicity.
All right, thanks very much indeed, Tamor. Well, in terms of distance, the island of Malta is in fact one of the closest European countries to Libya, and there is growing anger there against Muammar Gaddafi's rule. A day after 2 Libyan fighter pilots apparently defected to Malta, more protests have been taking place outside the Libyan embassy. Some demonstrators burnt banknotes depicting Muammar Gaddafi, whilst others set fire to an Italian flag and insulted Italy's Prime Minister, Silvio Berlusconi, who's been criticised for his relationship with the Libyan leader. Well, Malta is also proving to be the centre of some of Tuesday's most intriguing developments. AlJazeera's Cal Perry can join us live on the line from Valletta Airport. And Cal, on Monday, of course, we had those 2 fighter jets landing in Malta. Now reports of a Libyan ship off the coast.
Yeah, we're talking to a very senior source inside the Italian army, and what he's telling us basically is that this ship has been spotted off the coast of Malta. There's obviously concern on the part of the Italians, and we've been talking all day about the Italian-Libyan relationship. I think it's fair to say we're seeing tensions really rising here in a way that we haven't in the past. This ship, we understand, is just off the coast, and at about 6 p.m., we understand 5 Italian fighter jets left the base of Trapani in southern Italy to get eyes on this ship, to take a look at the ship, where it is, what's going on. There was rumors that maybe it had lowered its flag. Maybe this was a ship that was defecting. The concern, of course, is that if this ship is not one that is going to defect, what is it doing in these waters? Is this something, a message from Colonel Gaddafi? Now, as far as the airport here is concerned, this is becoming a place where people are trying to flee from Libya to. This is sort of the closest point to the north, as you mentioned, but planes are being turned around in the air. They're flying down to Tripoli, they're circling over the city, and then they're ending up right back here empty. There was one flight that made it through today. We were able to see some families that were finally able to make it out of the airport, but what they told us was on the ground, if you made it to the airport, you're generally okay, but getting to the airport in Tripoli is nearly impossible.
What about the Libyan population in Malta, Cal? They've been quite vociferous, haven't they? More protests today.
Absolutely, Felicity. We were at the embassy sort of midday today, and one of the interesting things that had happened was as they were protesting, calling for Colonel Gaddafi to step down, some of the embassy staff inside the embassy walked out of the embassy and joined the protesters. So we're seeing this government dissolve in its overseas postings, especially here in its own backyard of Malta. There's sort of this Malta, when you look at World War II, and I know it sounds a little bit off, but when you look at what happened in World War II, this place was called by Churchill as an unsinkable aircraft carrier, and that's exactly what's happening now. 60 years later, people are fleeing to this unsinkable aircraft carrier, trying to find some kind of refuge. All the while, we have a Libyan ship off the coast, we have planes in the air, the Italian Air Force is sending fighter jets down south to take a better look at what's going on. So certainly tensions are rising. It's becoming unclear how each European nation are going to get their citizens out. I can tell you, without giving away too much, that each individual country is starting to become very creative with ideas of how to get to Tripoli, how to get its people out, because by air, it's simply not working.
Yeah, it's fascinating developments there in Malta. Cal Perry, for the moment, thanks very much indeed. Well, of course, outrage has now been expressed in capitals of the world's most powerful countries, but not much has been done in the way of concrete action. AlJazeera's Barnaby Phillips has been looking at why all those strong words are not yet translating into deeds.
Another day of protests in London, but does Muammar Gaddafi hear what the world is saying?
This is unacceptable.
We need to see the violence stop.
We are extremely concerned with events.
This must stop immediately.
Condemned very clearly the repression that is ongoing.
To express our absolute condemnation.
Condemn it utterly.
And now America has joined the chorus.
We have grave concerns about the Libyan response to these protesters. We continue to be guided by our fundamental principles. We don't want to see any further violence.
where you can see how passionate the crowds are here outside Downing Street. But for all the frustration we're seeing here, it also seems that governments outside Libya have a very limited ability to actually influence events on the ground in that country now. Of course, oil and gas give Gaddafi leverage, but that's not the only reason foreign leaders struggle to put pressure on him.
Gaddafi is and has always been a maverick. It's difficult to predict what he wants, how he's going to go about things. He's therefore very difficult to interact with, have a rapport with, even for his own people who live in fear of crossing him. And on the outside, the relationship is complicated by the fact that on the outside, people usually want something from him just as much as he may from them.
The Arab League has banned Libya from its meetings, a gesture, but one unlikely to affect the situation on the ground. And then there's the African Union, which has said nothing. Perhaps because some African leaders have benefited from Gaddafi's financial resources, whilst others may even be afraid of him.
He's also explicitly, we know, funded at least 10 rebellions in Africa, including some extremely nasty people like Charles Taylor in Liberia, Foday Sankoh in Sierra Leone. And so other African leaders who've been on the receiving end of rebels supported by Gaddafi are very, very scared of him and wary of him.
So he's the maverick who leads the outside world a merry dance. And now his people suffer the consequences. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera, London.
Well, joining me now in the studio is Anas El Gamati. He's a Libyan blogger who normally works in Tripoli. And earlier, Anas, I think you were at that demonstration we were showing pictures of in London. You, of course, still have family in Tripoli. Are you able to get information from them about what is happening?
Yes. So the information that I've got so far is that there is some sort of calm. But the fear is obviously is that Gaddafi, because of the political inaction of our leaders over the world who have always called for freedom in the Middle East, or have supposedly called for freedom, have now done nothing, and they've been rendered as not politicians but political commentators. And I know that we've just watched Hillary Clinton's speech, and I'm sure that that's just gone into the Arab world somehow. But I mean, all she's really confirmed is that, you know, they're no longer friends on Facebook, her and Gaddafi. I mean, what are they doing?
What are Libyans expecting the international world to do you think?
Well, Gaddafi never got to where he is now with the African mercenaries and the weapons that he has on his own. He has friends. Now, what we're all calling for, and I hope that my views are consistent with the Libyan population at large, is that the United Nations takes action with the countries that are supporting him. Now, we know that Zimbabwe has flown in African mercenaries. I guess that's unconfirmed, but we're getting so many reports on Twitter and on Facebook that that's actually happening right now. So what we need, obviously, is that he's being cut off, first and foremost, from the people that are supporting him to kill his own people. And number two, what we hope is that effectively he's given a way out. We really, really need this now. People have friends. I mean, Tony Blair was in Libya not so long ago. He was there with 19 capitalists trying to get some oil out of Libya, and unfortunately, he's now gone silent. So, I mean, if you're his friend a few years ago, why aren't you talking to him? Where are the mediators? Where are the people that are negotiating with Gaddafi? They're the people that need to come out right now. There is enough awareness out there. People that have been blogging like myself and have been on Twitter have been really active in raising awareness, but it's a tipping point right now. And at that point, what we really need is government intervention at all costs.
And as we're running out of